Thank you to you for joining us here today. My co-host and I, KIARA WINDRIDER, are just ecstatically excited for this conversation, for many more, for your presence and your attendance and your love today. We are just so grateful for whoever joins us today or whoever watches us back. So welcome, whether you are of a particular belief system, whether you are of a particular race or gender. It does not matter to us here, folks. It is irrelevant to us. And we shall do our best to present our truth and messages here on this panel that represent that through the conversation and through many more individually. But welcome to you all. This is Age of Pandora, and this is episode 18, I think. And the topic of conversation today is United We Stand. And doesn't really need explaining. We're at a very exciting time on Earth, in the phases of human evolution. And we have some wonderful minds with us here today. I'm here with Jeff Dunphy, Laura EISENHOWER, PATRICIA CORI, MARINA JACOBI, and of course, MAGENTA PIXIE, who you all know, who I won't get into a long introduction for, but welcome all of you. It is a pleasure to have your time and have your minds back on today. I turn the mic over now to KIARA. I think you wanted to share a quick story before we begin the initial topic. So KIARA, the mic is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so hello everybody. So it's been a crazy week. It's been exactly a week today after the US elections, which has been one of the strangest elections in recent history, although every election has been pretty strange lately. I want to share a story, and a couple of days ago, I heard from a very close friend of mine who is going through the last stages of cancer. She's in hospice right now. And she wrote and said that ever since she was very young, she's been dreaming of a world at peace, a world that lived in harmony, where people could be who they were without being divided, where we were at peace with the environment. And she was just so thrilled, so ecstatic that Joe Biden had won. And feeling like now she can go happy. And she was just sobbing tears of gratitude. And, you know, we're all here to speak our truth. We're all here to hear each other's truth. We're all here to look at the big picture that goes beyond personal truths. And we're all here to support Gaia. But, you know, the way that news networks have been working, so many of us have been, I don't know, maybe the word brainwashed is not strong enough, or maybe it's too strong, but we have been brainwashed in so many ways by different agendas. And unless we understand the big picture as far as possible, unless we understand something that has been going on historically, which affects us in every possible way, the financial systems, the political systems, the social systems, the pharmaceutical systems, unless we understand the big picture, it doesn't matter what our intentions are, because we may still be taken over by something that we don't see. It's like we're broadsided in ways that we don't even understand, and then we look at the other side as the enemy. And I know this has been going on, you know, in the United States since the last 4 years, and especially since the election, that you know, each side assumes that it's on the side of right, assumes that the other side is the enemy, and for all good reasons. You know, the intention is the same. The world we want to see is the same. And we have to get beyond this division. You know, as someone said, maybe it was Gandhi, that divided we fall. And all they have to do to control us is to make sure that we are divided amongst each other. And then we do the job for them. And this is what's happening. It's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's not about right and left. It's not even about the issues that have been talked about. It's much bigger than that. It's much more historical than that. And it's about freedom. And it's, in a way, it's the last opportunity for freedom. Look at what's been happening this year. Look at all the lockdown. Okay, look at all the downlocks that have been happening. We need to be a little bit careful about words we use. And the agenda behind that is not about some germ out there so much as an agenda behind it to enslave humanity. Not one party or the other, not one nation or the other, not one social group or the other. It's a very, very small group of elite globalists that have been orchestrating this for a very long time. And unless we understand that big picture, we're going to, start pounding into each other. And that's the last thing we want to do, whether it's this show, whether it's our collective human soul. It's about healing. So healing doesn't mean sitting in the corner and taking punches. Healing is about fully understanding the big picture. And healing is about an adherence and commitment to truth. Recognizing also that personal truth is one thing, collective truth is something else. But we're looking at a big picture as much as possible. And that's what we want to do in this show. Looking at the big picture. And truth, there's no difference in my mind between spiritual truth, psychological truth, political truths, financial truths, because sometimes people ask me, it's like, you're supposed to be a spiritual teacher, whatever that means. How come you're talking politics? And politics in a lot of people's minds is about corruption, is about divisiveness, and a lot of people would rather step back from it, not recognizing the extent to which an ignorance of what's going on in the world contributes to suffering, whether it's environmental suffering, whether it's human suffering, whether it's wars in the Middle East or South America or within our own countries, our financial systems, the breakdowns, the war on freedoms that we're experiencing right now, whether it's freedom of health, freedom of choice, freedom of whatever it may be. So it's important to understand the big picture as much as possible, because once we do, then it's not about us and them. Then it's about recognizing what humanity is here for, the timelines that stand before us, and stepping into a collective timeline that's bigger than ourselves, that's healing, that's powerful, that's taking us beyond the last few millennia of duality. Because we are here to experience freedom on many levels. Ultimately, it's about spiritual freedom. Ultimately, it's going beyond all limitations that we have experienced as being human. But until, you know what Abraham Maslow said about the scale of needs. So unless we have basic freedoms that are political, that are financial, then we cannot even think about spiritual freedoms. And what we forget is that in our eagerness to attack, to defend, to get into this blame game, right and wrong, we're actually feeding what we call the deep state. So this is an umbrella term that's used a lot, which has been contributing to some of the anti-freedom agendas going on right now. So I wanted to say that as an introduction. So, I know that many of us listening here to this conversation come from both sides of the so-called fence. And it's about taking down the fences as much as possible, while at the same time speaking truth as much as possible. So it requires of all those watching that you step into a neutral space. I call it awakened neutrality. You know, that it's not about taking sides. It's not about attacking or defending. It's about allowing yourself to be open to many sides, because there are no sides in truth. But truth is something that resonates inside us once we have the big picture. But until we have that big picture, you know, we get, even our intuitions can be mistaken. You know, we depend on conditioning to shape our intuitions. And there's a lot of that around. The media has been one of the major forces in this conditioning. And we must recognize that, and how pervasive that is, and how one-sided that can be. So with that preamble, let's go on with our show and see what's going on in this world right now. See how we can actually contribute to an awakening, to a healing, and to an ascension timeline. So, and I really appreciate all of you for joining David and myself on this Age of Pandora.
Thank you, KIARA.
And all of you for watching.
Wonderful
All right,
stuff. Thank you very much. And well said. Nothing but echoes here. I absolutely agree. We're in neutrality as much as we can be here. But let's kick off on the first topic. Magenta, I want to bring you in here because I watched your post yesterday, I think it was, Riding the Sign, which was a great show, but it was recorded back in August. So it's kind of interesting to hear your view then and now. But there was something that was said there that I think some people missed. And it was Nina who said this. And I want to get your comments on this, because I think it's probably the most important topic on the table on Earth today, in my opinion. And she said that Gaia had already chosen the path of ascension. She'd already chosen higher densities. This is her path. And you can believe that to be true or not. I believe that to be absolutely true from what I'm seeing. And those who don't choose the path of the light in assistance to that ascension will be called to the front line to choose the light, or they will be, unfortunately, in some capacity, destroyed or returned to source, non-physical. That's just sort of the way that I see it happening. But what are your thoughts on that, Magenta, at this time? Because it is a time of polarity. It is a time of very difficult emotions here on the planet. But we do have to look at this bigger picture of assisting Gaia. But I'd love to get your initial comments on just that point.
Well, yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to join you again. Lovely to be with you all. What amazing energy. We were watching that video again, just out of total chance, actually. And then I realized we were actually talking about what we felt was going to happen around the time of the competition in America. And it was Daniel, actually, my husband, who said, we should upload this. Do you want me to turn it into a small? And I said, oh. And then I listened again and I said, do you know what? Yes, because everything we were saying was so connected to the way things have unfolded in our own interpreted ways. Each one of us saying something slightly different, but each one of us had a view in one way or another as to how things would play out. And so, absolutely, I mean, what Nina said about Gaia having chosen her path, that's absolutely correct. I mean, you can go multidimensional with that, and you can say that there are multiple Gaias, and each one of them is going into a different path and different reality, and one's going into a descension dark, and one's going. But if you're looking at Gaia as in the evolution of this Earth, the planet Earth, in not really a linear sense, but in the sense of the optimal timeline, the optimum timeline for humanity, who are standing with an open heart, then this is a decision that's made not just by us as humanity, but also by Gaia herself, just as Nina said. So she's going regardless, as Nina said, from that perspective. Gaia is ascending. And because the raise in frequency on this planet is becoming higher and higher and higher, it begins to match higher emotion and higher action, such as compassion and truth and sovereignty and righteousness and integrity. So everything that matches those higher emotions are the very actions and the very movements forward that this planet will express. So anything within this older energy, this lower energy, this darker energy, if you will, that isn't of that higher vibration, greed, corruption, manipulation, hatred, anger, all of those things, these are falling away. The individuals who feel these emotions, who act on these emotions, it isn't working anymore because the planet doesn't support the vibrational dimension that this planet exists within, does not support that frequency. And we are seeing it play out. And so, yes, we were looking forward. This was back in August that we made the video, looking forward. And, you know, Nina said some amazing things. In fact, I'm in touch with Nina at the moment. The three of us are going to get together again and actually discuss that very video and how things have played out. And I remember what I was seeing was something so complex that I was finding it very difficult to actually tune in on what it was that I was seeing, because whilst the win of DT was overall, because it's in alignment with the ascension timeline, and as KIARA said, nothing to do with politics, whilst that was the ultimate vibration and not just a win, but a landslide win, there were all these other things that I was seeing, and some of these playouts didn't appear to be in alignment with a DT win because there was something else going on. So it was difficult to work out that complexity. Of course, now we know how that's playing out and how we have now what the 9 and I in communication are calling an illusory win. We have an illusion, and this is really quite a positive presentation, actually, if you look at the, as KIARA was saying, the bigger picture, because this illusion is showing everyone a sort of a preview of what things would be like within that, let us call it the lower vibrational timeline, speaking in code. It's giving people a small preview of how things may be. We didn't need the preview, any of us here, because we are aware we were seeing things long before. But for those individuals who are not aware, it is giving them somewhat of a preview. So it is waking yet more people up. And there's so much yet to play out. But ultimately, it's interesting because the topic of that particular question came about from a conversation I'd had with Daniel, where I said, if DT doesn't win, we are, you know, kaput or whatever. And he was saying, I don't think that's very positive. I don't see that. And so I'm saying, well, that you're obviously not seeing the timeline I'm seeing, because there's no way we can move forward without the DT win. It's not possible. We're getting blocked at every turn. That has to be the outcome. And he was saying, yes, but what I'm seeing is something else. And I think that even if there was a JB win, I think humanity will come back around. And you know, this was kind of like not an argument, but it was a disagreement. But it wasn't until we actually got in front of the cameras and he asked the question again, pretending it was from someone else, it was really from him, that I realized he had a valid perspective. And of course, if you look at what's happened, everything he is seeing, he was obviously seeing the JB win, which is the illusory win, and I was seeing the DT win, which is the actual win. And yes, he did win with a landslide. And I started to see things around a week before the competition. So I've had many sort of chunks of visions coming in each day, showing me this sort of path. So because we're closer now, back in August, I was further away. Now we're closer and we're in it. I'm seeing things clearer as to how things work out. And anyone who's listening who's got any doubt and any worries, yes, DT is going to win. However, as I said from the start, it's not straightforward. It's something new. It's never happened this way before. It will change the face of politics across the world. And we are right in this. This is playing out right now. So don't worry about anything you see that looks as though it may be from the other timeline, because that's a preview showing to individuals the preview of what that timeline would be. So it will wake up yet another wave of awakening from individuals and insight. And in the rest of the world, we have all of this other, we're all somewhat closer to that other timeline, that darker timeline, because we don't have a DT standing in a position. We each one of us, most of the countries, not all, we each one of us have more of a sort of a closing in. There is such a distraction going on in other places, specifically here in the UK, that's almost saying, don't look anywhere else, just look at here, just look at what's happening in the UK, look at this, look at this, look at this. I'm talking about vaccines. That was announced today as the greatest Christmas present that anyone in Britain could possibly want. And Happy Vaccine Day is all over the papers, it's all over the television. So we're being forced to look at that. But where we should be looking, which people are not aware of when they're not aware, is America. That's where our eyes should be right now. Because what happens in America, this is the very thing that the 9 have been telling me about for 12 years. All eyes on America. What happens in America affects the rest of the world. It will spill out to the rest of the planet, and we're in it now. So that's where we need to look. Obviously, I'm talking on a physical level. Obviously, in truth, when you're aware, you don't look anywhere else outside of you. You look within. But you can look within and look without at the same time, as Chiara was, saying. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Magenta. Excellent. Marina, I know you're maybe on a little bit of a time cut today. Would love to hear your wonderful wisdom and add on to that, if you will, my dear.
Well, thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you, Patricia, for the first time. Okay. I will totally concur with Magenta. That was very interesting because when I heard about her, there were so many similar stuff of what I was getting from the Council of 9 that I started paying very close attention to Magenta's channeling. And I think the same thing was spot on what I was told, even in a different way, of course. But I was, and I'm going to quote, I have a book that is called The Predictions. And in there, they gave me, the Council of 9 gave me a specific code by words, of course, that actually was showing what is the timeline agreement that we have for Ascension Protocol, what's happening ahead of time. And the code for the end result for everything was the planet Earth is definitely moving to the new age. This program they were giving me, like it's a program that is shutting down from the consciousness itself. Basically, consciousness had certain program that was playing on, everybody had a freedom to do whatever they want to, but now the program is finishing. I'm moving to the next level of frequency vibration, and whoever play whatever they play out, now is the new age. And if you want to get on a train and move forward, you're welcome to do so. If not, these timelines, because they're changing the frequency vibration, will collapse for itself in a different resonance and will stay behind, which they can create different timelines. And eventually this timeline will self-destruct or go back to extinction, to the source, main source. However, everybody that is choosing in a positive is staying. So they did tell me that DT is going to be a winner by landslide. They told me, and I said that publicly months before that it's going to be a battle. And I said it's going to be something tricky going on there. But understand that in the end, it's going to be in the name of humanity. So now I know also they told me that he has to choose to stay second term. They told me that the White House of the military is running the entire program, but not only to the US, but it's global operation that is running this program. And they also told me that that family, DT family, will be like a dynasty in politics. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know who is going to calm down and who's going to be up, because what they told me, they discussed about the chess game. And the chess game is that they will give information to, for example, all of us here that are in this panel, certain timeline of what's really happening, but they're not going to give you the exactly what is going on and who may be the main player sometimes, because they're obviously watching people like us. And if all the information is being given to somebody like us, not only that we're going to be in a line of fire, which we already see what's happening, but also you're giving them exactly what consciousness is doing. And this is why in a project Looking Glass, whoever they had the psychics looking through the timelines, they couldn't see above fifth dimensional structure. Consciousness was sabotaging the platform. It was giving them a different type of reality, which was implementation in another hologram from consciousness itself or extraterrestrial version. We already know, because I'm totally into technologies of my material, I totally understand that. But actually extraterrestrials and high consciousness can plaster within the program that is running for ascension, another virtual reality hologram. And that particular psychic that is running against the harsh structure will tune in and download information based on that reality. And the information that is going to be given is of this information of what's really going to be happening in ascension, because consciousness is self-sabotaging everybody that is against the structure for humanity. Why? Because within the holographic imprint of consciousness, yin and yang, negative, positive, coexist at the same time. And you have to be in center, understand, and give things to play out. But when you go to ascension and you have a consciousness that is awakened now and wish to go to the next level, is against the bylaw for consciousness itself to suppress another consciousness for moving forward. And this is the reason why is all interaction from the extraterrestrial happen. High consciousness and people like us are being in some level, into that situation, because you have to allow this consciousness to have the free will to move forward if they awaken. However, whoever is not and chooses to believe one way or another, they have their freedom. But the goal was to do such a manipulation and such a clever, genius way from the negative side, so we all between each other, fighting between each other. And except the way Magenta said, everybody's focusing on different people, we should focus on combining our power the way we're doing in this panel, and thank you for that, so we can move forward and help each other to move forward without judging. The problem is that one way or another, somebody is attacking between each other. And this is exactly what they want. And why is that necessary for them? Because they're running on a different frequency vibration, and they want to grab as much as people they can towards their timeline, which is artificial timeline based on the technologies and anything else, to sustain their life force, because your body is a frequency vibration of a life force, and they need you as a battery to sustain their timeline. That's why it's so much. They know they're moving into their timeline, but they need humans, because you're a life force, you're their battery.
Magic. Well, what do I say after that? Really good, Marina. Thank you. Yeah, this is one of the greatest attempted Loosh heists of all time, I think, but it will fall folly. Patricia, Corey, would love to bring you in, my dear, on some commentary.
That's a tough act to follow. Yeah, I agree, of course, with both of those. I had a wonderful conversation on air with Magenta when we did a show on my station called Through the Looking Glass. And we both concurred and both received information from our sources, and mine are the Syrian High Council, that all of these timelines of these lower energies, all of them converge. Magenta described it as a train station, where all of these potential outcomes all eventually show a positive outcome. No matter what they do, it all converges at a certain point, and if they can't get past, they can't get the outcome that they're looking for, because it turns into this positive convergence of one outcome. And this was even described as being a product of the actual looking glass technology that supposedly the military have. And so I agree with that. And you know, from the information that I received from the council, it's always about the fact that we are in the process of going through the fourth dimension now on the way to where we're headed in these higher dimensions, and that it's a looking glass of its own. Because in this dimension, all of the scum, and I don't like that word, so I'm referring to it as the scum of a pot of boiling broth, not a derogatory term as people. All of the scum is bubbling up to the surface. And you know how scum is on a pot of soup. The more you try to scoop it off, the more it keeps bubbling up. And that's what we're experiencing. It's just more and more and more. And yet eventually we know that this is a process of clearing, getting to the clear vision, the clear soup, as you were, the clear cosmic soup. So I think that DT is doing a wonderful job, and his team, of taking us through the process of being able to look at this process where the scum keeps bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. And that each time a new event occurs, I don't have to define all the things we've been through in 2020, and now this competition, and now the aftermath of the competition, more opportunity for more and more people to look. And as we know, the idea here is, yes, that could have been immediately, I think it could have been immediately forced to show the true result, but this is a master chess player. I think Marina described him that way. I think we all see him as that way. In fact, I saw a picture of him at a three-dimensional chess game right out of Star Trek. But he needs, when we talk about clearing the swamp, we need as many souls as possible to really understand and see it. Otherwise, it's more struggle and strife and, another 4 agonizing years like this. No, he needs to bring it all up to the surface, which the team is doing beautifully, drag this out as much as possible, and more people, I don't want to say are being forced to see it, but they're not going to be able to not see it, because this is so widespread. It is such an abuse of power. And this is what Draining the Swamp is, isn't it? The ultimate breakdown of the entirety of the old crumbling system. As Magenta said, it's the US, baby. It's the US. That's the heart center of the New World Order. Oops, I'm not good at speaking in codes. Those guys is the United States. That's where it's playing out. That is the, I hate to say battle station, but that's what we're seeing. And I find it very thrilling and exciting that we've come to this point. We've been waiting for this point. The Syrian High Council have always said, did you think this was going to be a walk in the park? Tearing down the old? And, we talk a lot about timelines and choosing which direction, which line you're going to be on. But regardless, everything before we get to that train station leads to the breaking down of a structure that no longer serves this planet. And how people react to their choice of where they're going to be on that process. Always remember that in the end, all these timelines lead to that great train station in the sky. And that is the positive outcome. It can be nothing else. I don't like to think that people, I'm not crazy about the idea that people will choose to suffer and burn and others will choose to ascend. And I don't like that. I think that people will choose to continue to struggle with issues that they have to work out at the soul level. But I don't like the judgment idea that is very religious in a way, that some souls will choose ascension, some will choose the darkness. I like to think that some have just got a lot more that they need to keep learning until they can progress, and that it won't matter what planet they do that on. But this planet, this beautiful being, this deity is on her way. And in keeping with the information that I've always shared, it's not just the planet, it's the entire solar system. So we are seeing our sun mutate rapidly. We're seeing all of the other planets mutating extraordinarily. Saturn is losing its rings. Jupiter's spot is going berserk. Venus is heating up. It's the whole solar system that's ascending. I think that's really important to remember, because it gives us an even greater grasp of how galactic this is, this moment. It's not planetary, it's not individual, it is an entire galactic experience. Our sun going through its own astral cord, going through its own dark hole, if you will, and pulling us right in to this next experience. I'm very excited. And although I'd rather not have to go through the anxiety of what's happening, especially in the UK and in Canada, one can't say, keep your eyes on the America when you're seeing this overt action coming down. But in the end, what happens in America will determine what happens everywhere else, will dispel this grip, this claw, once and for all. And I have to say, I truly believe that this is the outcome. I think we're going to get a big surprise very soon. And I went from having this gut punch the day that it came down, the competition. It was like, you know, a Mack truck hit into my power chakra. And I had to resolve that in myself. And today I'm watching the powerful people. We know that there's a powerful team behind. We know, at least I think we know, that there are masters surrounding this team, light beings of many dimensions. But this one man, personally, I celebrate that he has the courage, the strength, the capacity to endure in this way. And so I think it's a gift to us to be able to experience this process. And I think that even though we're going to see havoc, let's not for a minute suggest this is going to have an easy transition either way. We're going to see mayhem. And I think KIARA was saying this in his opening speech, that, well, maybe not, maybe it was before we got on the air, that even that process will have its resolution. Let's, for example, suggest that the mayhem of rioting and whatever you want to call that, civil war, whatever that looks like, breaks out. It will only have a finite time before humanity resolves it. Because in agreement with, I think, everybody present, no matter how it unfolds, no matter what the drama is and the steps are, we know where we're headed. And soon, very, very soon. So I think it's important to take a deep breath and to remember that of the people I see here, I'm very honored to be with you all. We're all conduits for very high energy. We've been blessed with this assignment. And we've been blessed to be able to help as much as possible with people that need the guidance. And let's do this thing. Let's move forward.
Terrific. Wow. How do you follow that like that? Excellent, Patricia. Thank you. Jeff Dunphy, would love for you to chime in, my man.
Yeah, you know, the synchronicity between all of the messages continues to just make us sit back and go, wow. There is something that, I mean, the Great Pyramid talks, the message of the Great Pyramid is that around this time, there are two actions to do. And one is to look up and be part of this time of revelation. And the other is to hide from it and get swept away. So it doesn't matter what culture we look at, what civilization we look at, we see and find this very magic time that we're going through right now as revelatory. That's why it's called the time of revelation. Now, the couple of things I want to bring to bear or sort of point out is I really am of the opinion that good people have no idea how bad people are. And having been in the world and having managed billions of dollars and being seen firsthand how gamed the system is, makes one marvel at how corrupt the world is and how easily corruptible many people are. And I think what's happening right now is this vitriol, this nastiness that's aimed at those who choose to turn the lights on is a perfect example of how the corrupt are going to be exposed. The lights are going to get turned on so they can't help but see what's going on. And Patricia just pointed that out. And I think both Magenta and Marina pointed out too, that the battle's done. We're just seeing the machinations of it falling into place. And I do think, not ironic, as cliched as it sounds, good really does win. The good wins. And during this time of the lights getting turned on, it's enormously tumultuous. And it's hard because one of the things that happens is you're cracked open to a whole new state of observance. I don't know whether I want to see what's going on, but I can't help but seeing what's going on. It's like watching a train wreck. And it's happening in this way that is baffling most people. And there's enormous cognitive dissonance going on right now, where you can have two people watching exactly the same screen and saying, see, that's purple. And the other one's going, no, it isn't, it's orange. How can you not? Because their belief system is so entrained in them that it tells them what they're seeing as opposed to the truth behind it. And when you turn the lights on, the old cliche and thing is that, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. And I think there's a lot of people that are going through this enormous dissonance about, oh God, I don't want to see this. I want to hide. I want to be comfortable in my own perspective. I'm happy to, it's the devil that I know. I know the devil I know. And I also think the concept, and we've spoken of it, all of us have spoken of it, the concept of official narrative, we really need to ask the question, who makes the official narrative official? Right? There's some serious discrepancies in the dialogue that's going on. And boy, one of the things that I was witness to is how corruptible the system is, and how corruption and enormous amounts of wealth can be deployed in order to game the system, not in a day or a week or a year, but in decades. And even in centuries, where they say, here's where we want to go, how do we do it? And one of the things that we've seen globally is we've seen this ratcheting down of freedoms, but just a little bit at a time. Just a little bit at a time. And so we ratchet them down just by 1%, but then it's, another 2%, but they never unratchet them. They never give you back your freedom. What they do is they restrict you. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And so as you start to see the big picture, I bring us back to good people don't have any idea how bad people are. And one of the things that creates an environment where the evil can sort of impose itself upon the good people is the good people say, there's no way they would do that. There's no way there's corruption. There's no way they would lie and cheat and steal. How could they do that? Because the very fabric of goodness is you, by default, project goodness on other people. And so one of the things that happens in golden ages is there's no projection. Everybody just looks at each other as an expression of God and their Godhead. So this is why the Egyptian civilization lasted for thousands of years, where everybody was this wonderful part of this divine cosmic symphony, and they each had their own part to play. And then as it falls further and further out of alignment, further into egocentricity, it then becomes more corruptible. And this is, we speak of this, the KIARA as the Kali Yuga, right? I mean, we're stepping into this place where evil destroys itself just by the very entropy of going into the darkness, and the light explodes. And so there's this very magic time, but it's a bear. I mean, it really is a hard time to be walking through it. But as we talked about pre-show, there's a before picture of which we've all lived. There's the transition, and then there's the after picture. And I think we are here to bridge that space of knowing what it was like before and ushering in the new system, the new era, the new golden age, if you will, with our eyes wide open, and allowing the Mother Earth, allowing the cosmic laws, allowing the evolution of our solar system, and not just our solar system, because we clearly are not alone, but allowing it to move into the harmony of where it's going, where it's directed. And I think both Magenta and Patricia and Marina have all suggested that. And I think it's just a wonderful time to be alive. But, you know, as I said, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off, something fierce.
Yeah, well said, Jeff. Brilliant. It's very interesting when we talk about, and Jeff, we talk about this quite a bit. You teach on it in different ways, quite a lot. But when we talk about the corruption or the when we're critical of something, we're actually in another person. We're actually saying at the core level that it's not corruption, it's not this, it's not that. It is manipulation of that individual away from the knowingness of God, of divine, right? It's not corruption, it's just ignorance of God. And people who are in higher places or have studied this stuff, or maybe even way above that we never see, know exactly how to condition and control the Homo sapien through frequencies, through emotions. Should we not be aware of that, and should we not be in pursuit of mastery of them, then we will fall into that trap, and many have. I have, we probably all here have at some point. But now we're returning. Now it's the 8, now it's the infinity. And now we are returning back to source. And we've begun that return journey. It's thousands of years long, a beautiful thing. And so, no, wonderful. Laura Eisenhower, if you're on, my dear, I'd love to get your thoughts further on what we're talking about here.
Well, I probably won't share for as long as everybody else. Everybody covered such a huge range. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the planetary consciousness as far as I'm concerned. Everything, you know, has changed a lot since 2010 because the timeline shifted. The mother energy really got anchored back into the planet, and the sun started to move through the 13th sign. We're about to enter that period, November 30th to December 17th, when the sun moves through the 13th sign of Fiacus. We're going to get a lot of amazing transmissions and activations during that time because the ether element is available now in ways that it hasn't been for 26,000 years. So, I mean, people aren't really used to that energy. They're just kind of getting in the zone of, you know, the awakening process. But, you know, for the last 10 years, every time we move through this particular time of year, you know, this has played a huge part in people's capacity to awaken. That's why it's been so different in previous, you know, time cycles that there wasn't huge numbers of awakened people, and why this is such a prophesized window period, and why it's called a stellar activation cycle and an ascension window period is because of this very thing, is that the sun is moving through the 13th sign now, and how that impacts the earth grids, how that relates to the planetary body, what that means as far as the core sun within the planet, and how that connects to all the earth grids and all the different stargates on the earth, and what that means for our DNA and our capacity to begin to switch on dormant strands of DNA. We're going through a transformation cycle. This is the alchemical time of year where our DNA is very impacted because we are elemental beings. The nitrogen is based, the nucleic acids in our DNA are earth, air, fire, water. It's elemental. The 5th element is the mitochondrial DNA, which is the ether. We've had damaged mitochondrial DNA, which connects us to the mother. And that's all about the mother energy of the planetary consciousness. So when we moved into the 13th sign of Fiacus, we begin to reconnect with that. We begin to experience, you know, an inner cleansing that nobody can really stop. They can disassociate, though. They can let their ego attach to a belief system. They can get distracted. They can get pulled into sort of the web or the net. While those that are very mindful and very conscious and very much into the, you know, anchoring the spiritual energies and being connected with their own higher awareness are really going to, you know, utilize this time and come out the other end, you know, that much more activated and whole and balanced and really feeling the timeline that we know we've been a guardian of for thousands of years. So that's going to be a really, you know, amazing thing to, you know, move through, because it's in between the signs of Scorpio and Sagittarius. The Scorpio energy is already taking us into the underworld. We're already in the dark night of the soul of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We're already experiencing the dark night of the soul on a humanity level, as far as, you know, facing the inner demons, facing the inner programmings, facing those discomfort, those really uncomfortable places within ourselves that kind of remind us of how we might not be operating from a place of authenticity or truth. And so as a lot more of that rises, as a lot more consciousness rises on the planet, and the unstoppable force of truth and like what I like to call team light. It's not just about presidents here. It's not just about governments. It's a whole team of beings on the planet right now with starseed missions, whatever kind of missions, and also our relationship with the galactic and beyond, and God source and our inner divine template and the whole multidimensional cosmos. The true organic process that's unfolding, the true blossoming of human consciousness, which is an organic developmental phase of these times. So it's going to really begin to create a bit of a bifurcation, because it's impossible to share the same frequency with those that are operating from the artificial, that have been so sucked into the artificial that everything that they do and react to is based in the fear propaganda that they're being presented with, because, you know, they are solving their problems through the matrix system instead of through their heart and their soul and their connection to earth and spirit. And that's really what this experience is. Being a human is to understand, wow, we are a part of this earth. We are a replica of this earth and the earth grids and the multidimensional cosmos. We are a part of this. We are co-creators. We are absolutely, utilizing our creative imagination to manifest physical reality in every single moment, in every single breath. So those that have become sort of weaponized or integrated into this sort of machine, there's going to be, you know, some kind of split, and in that split, there will be a certain survival awakening that happens to those that chose the machine or the matrix, where they're going to feel the absence or sort of the loss of something, to the point where they might just switch on all of a sudden and like jump into that transformation cycle and be a part of it with us. So the splitting off is very much what happened to a lot of different species that have been trying to heal and recover, that have, you know, utilized time travel technology and all sorts of technology in order to recover their DNA and to rescue their dying race for the choices that they made, perhaps in this kind of window, because this is a major crossroads as far as timelines are concerned. So, you know, if there is a splitting off, that will cause digression of the human body. It will cause a compromised DNA structure, even worse than it has been. And then the other side of it is that we are progressing and we're moving forward and we're reclaiming the fullness and wholeness of all that we truly are. And we're moving into this ascension timeline that cannot be destroyed. So I'm just visualizing that this transformation cycle is going to bring in as many souls as possible to join in the process of doing this inner work, doing this dark shadow, dark night of the soul inner work. As we go into the Scorpio, we have been in the Scorpio. Then there's going to be a point in which that rock bottom hits. Each individual is going to hit that rock bottom. It's not necessarily all going to be at the same time, but when you hit that rock bottom where you're literally like really facing a level of grief, maybe depression, maybe fear, maybe anxiety, and total and utter confusion about this big mystery that we're all facing, not really knowing where everything's going, that we begin to find like some peace, some inner peace, and some connection with something that is so natural and so God-given and so a part of all that we are, that we might begin to feel it like illuminating. You know, as we move into that Ophiuchus energy and that ether energy, we might feel, you know, just something within our own beings begin to expand, begin to enlighten, begin to reassure, begin to like give us, you know, a sense of, you know, grounding and nowness, instead of what's going to happen or who's going to do this and is this going to go this way or that way. We're becoming more mindful and conscious within our own beings of the process that's underway within our own human vessel, because of this transformation. So then, you know, we move through the ether, we move through Ophiuchus, and then we end up in the Sagittarian energy of Jupiter. Then we move into the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, December 21st. And that's really going to show, as we move through this passage that we're going through right now, we're moving through the birth canal right now. A lot of people are stuck in the birth canal. They're afraid to emerge. They don't feel empowered by alchemy or transformation. They're not aware of that enough. They're lodged in the birth canal, asking for anything outside of themselves to solve it and fix it and guide it and tell them, you know, something that's going to give them a sense of safety and security. We got to find that within ourselves, you know, because that's going to affect the outer world, because we're a collective consciousness. When enough people in the collective are holding this sort of energy, the world has no choice but to respond back to us that achievement and victory on a collective level, which means that all the different players that are world leaders or in our governmental structures will rearrange themselves accordingly to the consciousness that we are manifesting as a collective. So we need to begin to just cut the cords and get back into our personal sense of self-sovereignty, move through this passage right now, really pay attention November 30th to December 17th, to really, really bask in those energies. Let it be like a personal initiation into the transformation of emergence of a divine, embodied human who's beginning to switch on dormant DNA. And, we can keep tabs on what's going on out there, but we have to remember the most important place is starting like right here in our hearts, in our souls, because we're moving from the personality matrix into the soul matrix. And we have to go through the death, rebirth, alchemical transformation process. And the veil that we're moving through as we do it is filled with astral parasites, it's filled with archons, it's filled with dark technologies, it's filled with AI signals, and it's just a whole mess of things. And that's where people get so freaked out and they turn the other way and they say, I can't continue to go through that. And then they turn their TV on and then everything is about what's coming through the television set and what's happening on the world stage. Because the feeling of moving through those thick, heavy layers and those fences and seals is so painful for people. But we have to realize we just got to bust through it, face the discomfort, breathe through it. I mean, we've all been through dark night of the soul journeys. Now we're going through a collective one. So, those that are on this planet right now with these kind of missions are the leader of the collective consciousness. They're holding that higher frequency to guide the planetary consciousness because they're in oneness with the planetary consciousness. So this organism, this Gaia, this planet, the consciousness of this planet is in this process of shedding all the artificial components that have chained her for thousands of years. Her earth grids, put everything in reversal codes, infected her circulatory system and her own ability to have the ether running through her whole body and being. It's created this, divine feminine locked in the underworld by Hades and these dark rulers of tyranny and these controller forces, minimalizing or demonizing that force and pushing it to the side with the patriarchal program, the Saturn moon matrix. So we're healing and collapsing these structures of dark technology that have created the false realities. But it's an inner initiation. We have to notice, where are we still in relationship with it? Where do we still consent to it? Where do we still play small? Where do we still undermine our spiritual powers? Where do we put fear above trust and truth in our divinity and what we're reawakening? Because our spiritual abilities are coming online. And that's going to change the whole landscape of everything. And we're not going to be repeating history, because that's what we're all kind of feeling, that tension of looping again in the time loop, being stuck in this 3D holographic time loop. And here we go again, this next wave of, war, attack, enslavement, being compromised. And this is where it's like that program gets busted and it's going to create a huge deprogramming all over the planet. And this next couple of months is an opportunity for this particular cycle until next year comes, where it's really activated, for people to really take the time to move through these energies and come out the other end and just say, regardless of what's going on in the world, you feel connected to the earth, air, fire, water, ether. That circulation is running through your system. You're detoxing, you're healing, you're deprogramming, you're doing everything in order to illuminate yourself as a whole, balanced, divine being with your sacred union template intact, which means that as you move forward, you'll slowly switch on all these other dormant strands. And whatever happens to that world that still wants to have that negative relationship with the false matrix and all these reversals and all this fear and this, satanic Baphomet, fields of dark energy that just wants to siphon and harvest, they're going to have to just like live that out and see what that does. Because there's going to be a point where us light workers are not going to be able to share the same territory and help that much longer. I mean, how much longer do we sit around, trying to give compassion and support and help wake people up? I mean, I know a lot of us are going to stay as long as we possibly can, but to the point where it becomes dangerous, though, that it's going to cause loss of soul or loss of DNA, we're going to have to move on and say goodbye. We'll come in spirit form. We'll be your spirit guides. We'll come up with another plan to help you, because we always have. That's why there's time travel. That's why we see where certain species ended up on the timeline to come back and, make up for those kind of errors or mistakes. But there will be some either split or a major, major collective event of awakening and deprogramming. And if we can get it straight in America and justice can be done, I see that happening. And that's possible that we'll experience it on a collective level. But if for any reason that gets shut down, we're going to notice there is, that definite bifurcation. I'm seeing both possibilities, either a major bifurcation or a huge justice event taking place over the course of the next couple months into January, where justice is served and the dark cabal is fully taken down and all the arrests happen because the positive military and these plans have been put in place decades ago. decades ago. This is nothing new. Every single card that the Illuminati plays, I mean, it's like it can be counteracted with just the foreknowledge and just, you know, everything that's been working real hard to, you know, protect our rights and our liberties and our constitutional rights so that we can move into ascension. But worst case scenario, you know, there will be a split. Best case scenario, which is what I'm holding space for, is that something miraculous and amazing is going to happen. And now that we have a Fiakis with us and the mother energy is anchored, we're going to see things that we haven't seen in thousands of years. This is the rising of the elemental kingdoms. This is like the return of Atlantis and Lemuria, the balance of the masculine and feminine. This is the rising of Avalon and all these elemental kingdoms, you know, and us stepping into like the human advancement that we know these times are all about. Not fear of a disease, not fear, not continuing this negative patterning. So the collective has to decide, every individual, that you're going to divorce the imposters and you're going to start connecting with the planetary consciousness. That is the leader. That is the power. And we are a part of that power. Everything else is a falsity, and all it wants to do is separate us from it. And this is the time right now to reclaim that relationship #1. And if enough people do that, the world stage has no choice but to reflect back to us the fact that the collective made the vote for love, truth, and justice. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Oh my goodness, we could end there. Thank you, Laura. Absolutely superb. Those of you who are watching this right now, what's happening here? You may have spent quite a bit of time watching the news and putting your gaze on the media and everything that's going on. But look at some of the commentary in the guests in this panel. And I think you will find, if you really pay attention to what they're saying, you will find a truth, a strength, a light that is not just here on this panel, but it is being remarkably presented today as ever with these wonderful folk, but it is all over the planet when you search for it. And we need your light right now to plug into. So this is the contrast. This is the media, what you're being told, and this is where we're going here on Earth in this conversation today. And it's a blessing to be part of this conversation. I'm going to move on, but KIARA, I know you wanted to say something, my friend. So KIARA, jump in here, bud.
Yeah, so we've talked about many different perspectives here, from galactic perspectives, cosmic perspectives, solar perspectives, you know, really looking at the big picture of timelines. And I want to just step back a little bit to what's been happening this past week. For those who don't know, there's been such an intensity, such a roller coaster. And apparently what happened the day of the election, or the night of the election, is that it seemed that Donald Trump was running away with a landslide. And then there was a break in the counting. And when it was resumed, it had shifted completely over to the other candidate. And that's what's led to a lot of the allegations about whether or not this is voter fraud, how it was accomplished. You know, many people have come forward to report on their own eyewitness stories about how ballots, you know, got dumped or overturned. There's apparently all kinds of technologies that can flip things around. It's something that the CIA developed to basically control elections in foreign countries, which is now being used in this country. It's called Scorecard. It's part of a software program that goes with the voting machines that were developed back in 2012. So there's been many, many different interferences. What's been happening is much of this is being exposed. And as a result of this exposure, and there's lots of people stepping forward now to report on this. Just a few hours ago, there was a report that Wisconsin has actually flipped over to DT. So JB is no longer considered to be the, he actually had to step back from the 270 electoral college mark. So he's no longer, even to the media, the president-elect. Pennsylvania is going in that same direction for the same reason, because what's been happening is that the exposure of this scorecard software technology has scared so many people that they are making the reversals in the vote counts. And this could be happening in other states as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Some people talk about the sting, that there's a blockchain technology that was developed so that every single official ballot has been encoded with an isotope that can be scanned from satellites out in space as well as from ground control. And so this was all being recorded in real time through this satellite technology, through these scanning devices. Who knows what's to me, it's a bit shocking that technology does exist to overturn governments, which is now being revealed. This is not something I condone at all. But the fact that this technology was used in this election is like, okay, one thorn pulling out another thorn. If there has been fraud, it exposes that fraud. And I'm not saying there has been fraud or hasn't been fraud. It's not up to me as a private person. This is something that the legal system is addressing right now. There's been a lot of different court cases being filed, and we'll see how it all plays out. But what I want to do is go behind that, because it's going to create all kinds of reactions for people from, it's like another roller coaster that's out of control. So again, I want to say that what we're addressing is not about who wins, Democrat or Republican. It's about breaking the power of the deep state. And DT was a candidate chosen by certain elements within the US military, admirals, generals, who were actually created. There was a special branch of the military within the Marine Corps that was created by Laura's great-grandfather, Dwight D. Eisenhower. And the idea was that, well, he recognized that the deep state was too strong to confront at that particular time. JFK tried later and was assassinated for it. And we've come to the point where this is the last possible front. And either the deep state wins, which means basically in a 1984 scenario, those of you who are familiar with George Orwell, in the complete enslavement of our thoughts, our lives, our finances, our travels, our, everything, which is something that's happening in some countries already. So it's either that or a final overthrow of this global elite. And this is why this particular branch within the US Marine Force, signed into as an executive order by Dwight D. Eisenhower, is now coming forward. They were the ones who selected Donald J. Trump to run for president. It wasn't, based on his background, also based on his relationship with John F. Kennedy Jr. And this is a fairly complex picture. But what I want to say is that, the media, in order to, because they are a part of the deep state, and in order to overthrow the system, have been basically coming up with lies to reverse what's really going on. it's exactly the opposite of what people think. You know, what people have learned to think about DJT is that he is this, you know, total piece of crap. And that's what I started off with, and many of us have. You know, it's like all the labels, you know, sexist, misogynist, xenophobic. I don't even know what all those things mean. But you hear it enough times and it becomes true for you. And this is what Goebbels said, the propaganda minister for Hitler. If you hear something long enough, and if it's, what's the word he used? If it's big enough, then people will believe it. Like Jeff was saying, you know, good people don't imagine that bad people can be as bad as they are. So we kind of, you know, pretend that we're not seeing it. We put our heads in the sand and we think, no, it's not really happening. It's too big. And then people come up with words like conspiracy theory to, you know, dilute it or to ridicule it. And the truth is, this is going on. I can tell you from my own work as a psychotherapist, for many, many years, I worked with survivors of satanic abuse, ritual abuse, you know, this really horrible stuff. I've heard stories that would, you know, that would chill people to the bone. It's not easy listening to all this. Many therapists around the country, around the world have heard these stories. One thing that's happening right now is that there's a release of these victims. They've been rescued from deep underground bases, child trafficking rings, pedophile rings. It's being exposed. And if nothing else, this is what one thing that I could really get behind DJT for. Not many people know about this. And of course, the media won't talk about this because they are part of this. And I have to tell you, the time that I worked as a psychotherapist within this system, you know, we worked with an institution that was very specifically working to deprogram people who were caught up in this mind control game. And what was difficult is that as soon as you report this to the police precincts, or, you know, it goes up to the judges and the politicians, they themselves are often part of it. And so basically we got completely, we had to fold eventually. Now what's happening is there's enough people coming up with these stories, eyewitness stories, their own stories, that it can no longer be ignored. There's enough people who have been rescued. And what is the fatal flaw of the deep state is that many of them are involved on these levels of, you know, there's no other word for it, evil. And as Charlie Ward said, who we interviewed a few weeks ago, it's not a battle between Democrats, Republicans, red and blue, all those labels. It's really about good and evil. It's about taking down the deep state. It's about return to freedom, human freedom. If we don't have our freedoms, what do we have? And this is a man that's been guaranteeing our freedoms, fighting for our freedoms. And that's what I respect about him. It's not about his language he uses. It's not about being brash and a bully sometimes. He is, I've heard from places that he's an incarnation of General Patton. And you have to be a strong character. You have to be aggressive. You have to be belligerent in order to stand up for things like this. For someone like myself, you know, let's say something on Facebook.
KIARA,
and immediately do this. What's that?
I'm just going to press pause on you for a second because we're about to lose Marina. Sorry, my man. I love what you're saying. Just hold that thought. Marina, before you pop off here, do you have any final thoughts or comments? No particular comment, just anything, topic, just anything you want to share.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say what I was just told recently from the councils. They said to me, know that you moving forward. Humanity consciousness is moving forward. The end result is in the name of humanity. Focus on inner work, whatever we need to do in a daily basis, you know, be positive. But they said to pull away from the mainstream social media, because the mainstream social media is the program in our holographic matrix that is shooting the frequency vibration holographic imprints to actually sustain the system of the human consciousness to run in that particular resonance. Now we're talking, if you think of a computer, In order to shut this program down and switch it into a positive, even when you eventually move in there, is going to be easy transition when we move away from their matrix of narrative and staying on the path of ascension narrative that every one of us here is talking about. And if you behave in a positive and you acting from positive belief system, you're going to create reality outcomes that will lead you towards the positive outcome. That is for every single individual. The negative side was given a while ago opportunity to move forward. No matter what you've done, they told me, and I'm quoting, they were going to give to somebody that's from the negative, because a lot of these people that end up in a negative structure, they were born into a family, they were trained this way, they were abused, they were manipulated. So they told me, do not judge, because you don't know what the situation of that particular individual is. And the stories are horror stories of what they did, because in the negative side, if you believe in this Baphomet or whatever that is, they can also give their kids in that cause. And the fact that they did that, the stuff that they did to their own children is just beyond our imagination. It's horrific. So they told me this type of consciousness is being so distorted and so manipulated to the point that they themselves do not recognize the compassion, even if they want to. But if you do something heroic in the name of humanity, they said for this particular individuals from the negative side will be given another holographic imprint of reality that they're going to be able to continue ascension from their perspective. And this is, I'm quoting everything. So they said, don't you worry. What I heard that they collectively decided to fight, because I'm quoting what I was told. And they told me like this, do not judge us what we do. Even individually, some of us wanted to move forward, but collectively the decision was made to basically, because what you're asking us is to instinct ourselves. That's a quote from a negative side. I got connected one time and literally was after me, and I had to keep my ground to the point that I didn't want to say something negative. And I started asking questions, why this happening? So they explained to me from their point of view, how many of them are being manipulated, but how many of them have a completely different point of view. So I literally at that day, for some reason, no matter how I was kind of disturbed of what happened, I've realized that from their perspective, this is their survival. So who are we to judge them when a lot of humans right now are actually killing the animals for their survival? If some other consciousness is looking at us as animals, the way we look in the animals, what is wrong with what they're doing? But when you're ready to ascend, you have no right to suppress. And that's why they are doing everything through manipulation, because if they manipulate you by telling you ahead of time what they're doing to you, and you say, oh, that's okay, and you give them the consent, this is the glitch that they can continue doing whatever they can so they don't accumulate this energy. And that's why it's so clever what they were doing. So I forgiving to everything and whatever is happening. I'm going to be focusing only on the positive. I'm going to go through that. And the thing that I can say to everybody is to focus on the positive, stay away from the mainstream social media, and do everything in the name of humanity, because this is the only way you can move forward. So you need to attach yourself to this type of timeline that goes to ascension, because your own resonance that you're projecting has to match like a magnet that frequency of ascension timeline. And that's your freedom. You free yourself. That's the ultimate. So thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for having me. I have a family obligation I can have to do. But again, I'm so happy to be with all of you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Marina.
Bye,
Thank you for joining
everybody.
us.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And thank you for your comments. Beautiful. The harmonicreactor.net, I think it is .com, from Marina Jacobi.com, sorry. And the harmonic reactor on YouTube. All links again will be in the description, guys. Go and check Marina's work out. It will be worth your time, I promise you. Thank you, Marina. Beautiful. Let's
Bye,
change.
everybody.
See ya. Let's change gears a little bit here. I want to read something very quickly on this next topic. And Laura, I'd written this to you with Kiara on the thread recently about the shifting of the guard here, the changing of the earth leadership powers, awakening to, as you would say brilliantly, Jeff, the genius within ourselves, the God within us. And what brings me so many marvels and so many here is nature. Nature is a wonderful, wonderful teacher of so many things. Whenever I go out in nature and I see an animal, I get emotionally, I get an emotional reaction to it because I have so much love for nature and animals. Specifically, as well as the cute stuff, the birds of prey, the powerful cats and things like that. And I want to talk about the golden eagle for a second, which is one of America's most cherished visuals, most cherished symbols, and it stands for a lot of powerful things. I don't know if you know this, but the golden eagle, when it hunts, when it goes down and because it's traditionally a seafaring predator that goes elsewhere, not quite like the osprey, which is very, very primarily seafaring in terms of hunting for food. But when the golden eagle dives down and grabs a fish, those talons are like a pit bull's jaw. It literally locks and it cannot let go. It's encoded into it. And there are many, many golden eagles that die every year from not being able to let go of this fish or whatever they've got on their talons, and they actually drown. It's very interesting. But the golden eagle that we're transitioning to right now, and there's a point to my madness here, is the age of the dove. And that sounds cute and sort of movie-like and what have you. But I want to read a piece here from my favorite books. Jeff, you know these. The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. I'm reading them again. I've just read 6 of them. And this particular piece, which I want to talk about, is about that transition and how we can do it. Because there is a portion of light bearers on the planet right now in this leadership group panel here. You watching this, you are the new leaders of Earth, all of us, in different stages of our awakening and intention. And that's totally fine. There's no hierarchy. But we do have a responsibility to look, as we were talking about pre-show, with our eyes about what's going on so we can navigate things from 10,000 feet, but also through our ajna, through our third eye, to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 years beyond where we are now, and start to bring in these structures that Marina was talking about, that we've all talked about, so we can start to move towards it. And those that will want to follow that, if we lead it with the right way, with the Mary Magdalene, with the Jesus, with the Buddha, whatever, with the right anchoring of love, those aligned will follow. And those that won't will have to navigate their own journey until they get there, and that's fine. We'll be there for them however we can. But this little piece here, it was at the beginning of book 1, actually, and it's talking about the United States, funnily enough. And this expedition team led by Baird Spalding had asked one of these masters, Emil, and they called them the masters. They never called themselves that, but the expedition team called them that. And they encountered Jesus and Buddha and many others on the journey, was talking about the United States because they were curious. They were starting to ask these masters questions. And this is one of Emil's responses. How we look forward to the age which is dawning, the age of crystal, the pure white light of dawn, gradually breaking. And in a short space of time, all will see the full blaze and glory of this approaching day. Then there will be no darkness, no limitation. Does not this suggest that there must be eternal progress? If not, all must return to that from which it sprang, the universal substance. All must progress or go back. There is no halfway point, no stopping place. When your nation does recognize its true estate or mission and join hands with spirit and expresses as God wishes it to express, or lets the spirit unfold from within, we can see for your great nation a marvel far transcending the power of any human tongue to describe. There is no question that it took the great strong beak and talons of the eagle to hold your nation together during its development. But when the true spiritual light comes, it will be seen that the dove is mightier than the eagle, and the dove will protect what the eagle now guards. Look at the words on the coin you send into every avenue of the world trade. In God we trust, and e pluribus unum, one composed of many. The very slogan of spirit when the dove replaces the eagle on the life medium of such a nation. I mean, profanity in its very form. Amazing. Let's talk about that for a minute, about the transition of the dove from the eagle. And Magenta, I'd love to just toss this over to you.
Wow, lovely, and such wonderful comments from everyone. It's interesting. I didn't know the eagle was a symbol for America until literally 2 days ago. We were looking for a picture to just place with an audio that I had done to upload as a video, just on a quick audio. So Daniel was looking for a picture and he was picking this eagle, and I was saying, why do you keep looking at eagles? And he was saying, well, they're the symbol for America. I said, are they? So I didn't actually know that until 2 days ago. So it's interesting that you bring that up. So yeah, something I learned and which I now realize it's been a symbol for America for years and years and years. So how did I miss that one? The transition from the dove to the eagle is really, I mean, I must admit, I don't necessarily see it as a transition myself. I see it as an understanding of both and a merge with both. So it's almost like the journey from source itself, which is what I feel is being said, what you were saying. So the dove is coming forward as the innocence. And in the original presentation of source, this is pure innocence. This is pure unknowing, because that energy doesn't need to know anything. It is all knowing, but unknowing because there is nothing to know, if you know what I mean. So it's purity, it's innocence, and that's the dove. But then source takes the journey from our perspective. It's just one pulse from the perspective of source. But from our perspective, we see this as a journey away from source to actually look at the opposing aspect of source, to be able to understand itself as source moves through the wisdom and the journey, which we all take as well. And the eagle represents to me the other bird, but instead of innocence, we have a bird that is the warrior, the bird that is the majestic bird, the bird that can fly and fight, if you know what I mean. It's complete integration. So I would say the dove is innocence, the unknowing of source, just the pure pulse of source, crystalline energy, if you will. And the eagle represents the integration, the having gone through the journey, the power, the warrior, and I would place them both together. But it is a transition, you're right, because you are moving from A to B in a linear perspective. Wonderful symbols, and birds are so synonymous with our spirituality, flight and wings, the bird people, the return of the bird tribes, all of these codes that we have within us. I'd also like to just comment on something KIARA said, and I agree completely that it isn't up to us to say whether, or going back to the election, it's not up to us to say whether fraud's been committed or not. I agree with that. But I feel from as a planetary psychic, as someone who's been given the ability to have these visions for so many years and work them out and understand what they mean and decode them like the living dream, very rarely do I ever say that I know something categorically. Very rarely do I ever say that I know something 100%. I mean, how can you when 100% is absolute? And there are no absolutes within the truth of reality. But when you look at the physical level and what's gone on, I will categorically say 100%. that fraud was definitely committed. Not only was it committed, you know, it wasn't just a little bit, you know, to not be able to change the outcome. This was a grand scale operation that changes the outcome hugely. But it is going to, as we said earlier, show everyone what's been going on. And as so many other people have said, and like Jeff said, good people can't understand how bad people can really be. It's impossible to them to actually go to that point. So that's the eagle as well. That's the eagle, because the dove is the innocent person. The dove is purity, innocence, goodness, service to others. And in that place, that heart space, that crystalline frequency, you don't see evil, you don't see darkness, you don't see what is bad. And you certainly can't believe from that perspective, how could that level of corruption occur? Maybe 1 or 2 ballots, you know, but in every state throughout an entire country as big as America? Of course not. Not from the point of view of the heart of the dove, which is the essence of humanity, the purity of humanity. But when you switch to the eagle, who's been through that integration, who's worked through that truth, who's been through the multiple dark nights of the soul, as Laura was saying, then you understand that. And the eagle is the metaphor, the bird that is giving the distortion, the truth, to assist the dove to go through the integration. So it's the soul's journey. That's what we are all going through at different stages. And as others have said, everyone here on this panel and multiple others across the world have been through this journey, and we are able to stand, if you will, not individually as a leader, that's potentially could be seen as ego, but we do stand together as a group, as a leadership. We know this, and we've known this, many of us, since childhood. We've known we were looking for our team, and that's where we are now. And I think it was Marina that said, as we go forward, people will turn away from the media. They will look to find the truth. So we have all eyes on us, not just as an attack, because those that want to perpetuate the false narrative want to bring us down, shut us up, quieten us so that they can keep a lid on this false narrative. But also, all eyes are on us from those who are looking for the truth. The dove is turning to look at the eagle and saying, how are you what you are? 2 very different birds, 2 very different symbols, and it is a transition. Absolutely, it's a transition, but I feel it's a merge, a unified merge, as well as a transition period. And that's what we're slap bang in the middle of right now. So.
Beautiful. Thank you, Magenta. I love your expansion of that. So the dove is integrated at such a time where talents are not needed, but it is a transition. I like that. Really good. Thank you. Patricia, Corey, my dear, jump in. I think you're on mute, Patricia. You have to unmute your mic.
Now? You hear me? I can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
I can hear you.
I just had to, I was excited like a child because of this beautiful metaphor and how it all resonates and we all are such beautifully in sync. At the end of my book, The Cosmos of Soul, the Syrian High Council said, be mighty as the lion, acute as the eagle, gentle as the dove, always remembering that you are the Gaia vibration rising. So the fact that this beautiful metaphor was used again, I just really felt excited that we remember that we are all these aspects and that we don't want to leave anything behind. We don't want to transition. We need all these aspects, all this animal medicine, if you wish to call it that. And that this metaphor is beautifully representational of us right now. We humans, Homo sapien rising, And I just felt excited that it's reverberated in the ethers. I just shared. That's all.
Wonderful. Thanks, Patricia. I love it. Jeff, I saw you get animated there, my friend. Jump in.
There's something quite spectacular and reaffirming about the serendipity of these kinds of conversations. And as I see every one of you almost get taken away, we call it the genius or the spirit of the soul. You get taken away and you just allow these great truths to flow through you. And again, it's just this part of the serendipity of the divine design. And it is so extraordinary to watch. And I hope that the viewers are going to have that kind of aspect of, and it is revelatory when you start to hear and see and see that there's just this magic divine design that we're all connected to. And it moves us in ways that is beyond our capacity to understand. You know, the masters would say it's beyond our ken. We don't get it because you cannot get it intellectually. But there's something so right about hoisting our particular sails in a direction that is in keeping with the evolution, the proper evolution of mankind. And I think we use something in the Lamasery a lot, and that's if the organs of the body treated each other like mankind has been hypnotized into treating each other, you wouldn't last until dinner time. And I think we all are, again, as we said earlier, we're just part of this great cosmic symphony, and each one of us has a part to play. And the vibratory expansiveness of the cosmos is in our hands on one hand, and it's all in divine keeping of something far bigger than us, the God that we are, but also the God that we collaborate with in order to unfold in alliance with this extraordinary expanse of consciousness.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jeff. I love it. Eloquent, as beautiful as ever. I think we lost Laura there. So we are heading to the end of the show here, guys. We will do a quick meditation at the end to lead us out. So I do, as I just put in the chat, I'm throwing this open for questions for people. If anybody does, I think Patricia Corey's got to go as well. If anybody does have any questions at this point, please do post it in all caps so I can see, and we will ask a couple before we wrap here. We've gone on for quite a bit, but all important topics, I feel. Let's round out with this final question as one or two may come in here on the chat. And again, actually, KIARA, maybe I'll throw this at you, my friend, is that how do we find our place at this time? There's a lot of people out there who are kind of confused about what they should be doing, what their mission is, what their work should be right now. What's your thoughts on people who are wanting to contribute but not sure how to in the Great Awakening? I'm talking about pursuit of the light. What is some of your thoughts on what people should be doing right now for just maybe our general audience?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. You know, to me, we are working on so many different levels simultaneously. So yes, we're doing what we need to do individually, and we're also connected with the spirit of Gaia. We're also connected with the collective consciousness of humanity. And we can address all three of those, depending on what's going on for us, what our own particular psychological and spiritual focus might be. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. But first it begins, I would say, with recognizing what is true for you, which may be unique. And I think this is what many of us are struggling to understand, is like, what is my role? I really want to play a role in the new earth, but what is that role? You know, many people feel really insignificant. It's like, what can one person do to make a difference? No, none of us is insignificant. And it's not about what we do, but what we are. And I think that's where we go back to what we were speaking about last time with the scale of consciousness. You know, one person operating on, this is the scale that David Hawkins talks about, 0 to 1000. And the average human right now has already shifted from where we were at about 200, maybe 20 years ago, to around 250. And according to some, much of this actually shifted this year in response to all the chaos and all the craziness. So it's like, yes, there's a place in us where when we are confronted with challenge, we step forward, taking it as an opportunity to grow. And it's often only when we're pushed against the wall that we find the courage and we find the will and we find the attention to make a difference. And then in that space, we're much more open to intuition, to the higher mind, to the heart. So as long as you're sitting on the fence, as long as you're distracted by all the things we normally are, we're not going to be wanting to listen. We have it inside ourselves, all of us. But it requires a choice. Yes, I do want to listen. And when you're pushed against the wall, which is what's happening this year, in so many ways, in so many countries, then you start listening. And then you find your place in the whole. It's not your place by yourself, it's your place in the whole. Just like every cell in the body has its own function. So every place, each of us has our own function within the collective. So honor that, whatever it may be. Some people may be a skin cell, another person may be a liver cell, another person may be a brain cell, whatever. So do what you feel most passionate about, what you feel most heartful about. As Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. But first, de-hypnotize yourself. And I think that's what we're talking about here. Because so many of us have been in this trance state, where we have given up our own integrity, our own sovereignty to the voice that has been trying to impose its will upon us in so many ways. And once we recognize that, then we have choices. Until then, we don't have choices. Until then, we simply become robots and automatons. And we follow someone else's agenda. If you want to find your truth, your agenda, your purpose, it means breaking out of that matrix. And that's what's difficult. It often takes you first through cognitive dissonance. It's too much. It's too much for me to handle. It doesn't fit my belief systems. I'm emotionally devastated listening to all this stuff. And then inevitably we say, you're wrong, in order to anchor my sense of identity. Or I don't want to listen. I put my head under the sand, and then I'm useless. Then I can't contribute. So it's not about whether you're working with the environment, whether you're working for peace, whether you're working with children, whether you're working, whatever your particular focus and attention may be. But first find your own truth, discover your own heart, your own integrity. And that takes looking at the big picture. And so that's what we're here for. It's not about my truth is better than your truth, or I'm right and you're wrong. No. Heaven forbid we go into more of that, division. But it's like, yes, we're sharing the big picture perspective so that, if things change and it ends up that DT wins the election after all, those of us who have been feeling really ecstatic now will end up feeling really deflated. And if JB wins, finally, this is going to be the reverse. So either way, it's like, yes, what is trust about? I'm not, magenta, beautiful that you can, from your own inner wisdom and your own inner seeing, make a prediction. I have my inner sense, but it's not such a strong sense. I know where we're going ultimately, but I can't say that this election will be the deciding point. I hear what you're saying, and I love what you're saying, and I hope that's true. But at the same time, it's like, we have to also heal the divisions and break out of our cognitive dissonance. And they both go together. So I would say the first thing to address right now is the cognitive dissonance. And then choices become clear. And then we find our own part in the picture. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter in the least. Whether you're in the US or someplace else in the world, doesn't matter in the least. Whether you're for something or against something, lockdowns or, germ invasions, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter, because you're looking at the big picture, you're seeing behind the scenes, you're ripping apart the curtain, and that wizard sitting in Ozland turns out to be a bully and a weakling. That's what we're talking about. When we talk about taking our power back, our sovereignty back, it's not about trying to take it back by pressing someone else down. This has been the history of revolutions. So one revolution leads to another revolution. The revolutionaries become the tyrants. It's not about that. We don't need to go into that cycle anymore. It's breaking out of that cycle, breaking out of that matrix. And that requires we listen deeply to ourselves, to our hearts. But that only happens when we can also see the big picture. So intuition is important, but knowledge is also important. When I'm talking about knowledge, it's big picture knowledge. So yes, this is one step along the way, and let's see where we go.
Thank you, KIARA. Terrific stuff. And we all kind of echo each other here. Right, guys. Well, before we get into a David Wilcock ultramarathon here, much love to DW, by the way, no disrespect there. I wanted to just ask one question, which I think is probably the most important question in the chat right now, and then we're going to wrap up. And I'm going to throw this right at Magenta. It's probably the most asked question, one of them that you may get, certainly one that I get a lot. And it is, how do we navigate holding our truth and existing within this current arena of divide? And that's from Summer Sunshine. Magenta, your thoughts?
Yeah, that's the best question. And what I would say is, do not expect yourself to be perfect. Do not admonish yourself when you feel you haven't achieved what you think you should. Because right now, we're holding that truth, we're holding that higher vibration and that unity, but we are moving through, as KIARA was saying, this incredibly divisive situation, and all of the chaos that's occurring with it and the integration that has to go ahead. So as we're moving through that, we need to understand that we are going through multiple different states ourselves. With what's going on right now, we may wake up and feel grief. And that grief, it's not quite the same grief as if we've lost someone. It's the same feeling, but it's there because we're perceiving a particular aspect of reality. So regardless as to whether it's JB that's one, or DT that's one, or some other situation that's changed in your reality, the grief is there because we were expecting something else, or we're seeing something that we never thought we would see, or we're seeing something that isn't in alignment with what we know to be true and to be part of the ascension. And yet after that grief, we can work out why that grief is there. And within half an hour to half a day to a day, maybe longer, we can then move into a comfortable place, an ecstatic place, a place of knowing we are changing all the time. So I think really we need to be our own best friend. We need to be able to separate ourselves into two and actually have a talk with ourselves. So, you know, when we're feeling that we're not coping, when we're feeling grief or anger or horror or any of these feelings, or some are having nightmares. People are coming to me, they're having horrific nightmares, all part of the integration. Why am I having nightmares? What am I doing wrong? How am I failing? Why aren't I just floating through rainbows in my astral projection? Why am I seeing demonic beings and having nightmares? It's all part of the integration of what's happening collectively. We're connected to the collective as well as to our own individuality. So we have to bear that in mind as we move forward and separate ourselves. It's just one technique, and talk to our own self. And we can do that from the perspective of it being a higher being, a future being, a guardian angel, but we can actually speak to our own self. And one say it's me, I'm splitting into two magentas. One magenta says, I woke up feeling grief today. The other magenta said, well, you don't need to feel grief because everything's really good. Everyone is going through this integration. We're moving through an ascension. Everyone is learning. Yes, I know, but I feel awful, and it's just so depressing, and it's just so horrible what I'm seeing and what I'm reading. So it's okay to have these different feelings at the same time. It's not about getting rid of all those negative feelings and just sailing through like an almighty guru in a state of peace 24/7. It's really being human. So my number one advice is, do not admonish yourself. Do not think that you have failed. This is normal to go through these feelings. 1 minute you're going to have insight, you're going to know, you're going to be sure, you're going to feel confident, and you're in a state to be able to help everyone else. And the next minute you're going to start to doubt. Think, well, what if these visions I'm seeing, what if it is all nonsense? What if what I'm seeing isn't true? What if the reality is this? And then the next minute, that other aspect of you comes in and says, yes, but if that was true, why were you having these visions from the age of 6 years old? And why did you get everything right when it comes to your dad and your mum and your sisters and your brothers and your friends at school? And why did this happen and this happen and this happen? Why would all that happen for the last 30 or 40 years for you to be wrong now when the feeling is the same? And I'm speaking here to someone who's going through a visionary experience. It's allowing the flow and not clinging on to anything, resisting anything within you, even when you're feeling emotions that you feel you shouldn't feel, because there is no shouldn't. It's okay to feel this way. And it's okay to empathize with others, either one-on-one or with the collective. So be your own best friend and literally imagine that there's two of you and you're talking to yourself. If you can't get the guides and the ascended masters, and be yourself and speak to yourself. You can stand and do that in the mirror. If you can't visualize that there's two of you and that you're talking to yourself, if it makes you feel a bit crazy, that's okay, because we are breaking down in order to reintegrate into that unity. This breaking down of society and looking at the division and attempting to heal it and move into unity, that's happening to us. It's happening to us individually and collectively, and to society, and to the planet, and to the grid structures, and to the galaxy, and to the solar system. It's happening on such a grand scale, because these are multiple cycles all occurring at the same time, going through the same frequencies at the same time. So stand in the mirror and look at yourself. Or the other method you can use is writing things down. I feel angry. I'm really upset that JB won, or I'm really upset that DT won, wherever you may be, or I'm really upset that they're talking about vaccines, or quarantining us, or not letting us out of lockdown unless we've had a test, or whatever it may be. They're not selling things in the shops. I'm upset about this, that, and the other, whatever it is, whatever's occurring, lockdown itself. Write that down and then read what you've written. And then, just if you can't connect to the higher aspect or even to the other aspect of you, just use it as an exercise, as if you're playing a game. Now imagine that someone else wrote that. So if you're feeling really, I feel terrible, I feel grief, I'm so upset, I can't stop crying, I want to go and hurt someone, I want to go and strangle somebody, whatever the energy may be, write it all down. Don't worry, no one's going to see it but you. Write it all down. Then take a step back. You can even go off and do something else for an hour. Take a deep breath and come back and imagine that's someone else. Imagine that's your friend asking you for help, telling you how he or she feels, and then write the answer. Say, you know what, maybe go outside and, you know, grab a pillow and hit it if you must, or do a bit of activity or yoga or martial arts or something, or whatever it takes to integrate that feeling and answer your own question as if you were your own best friend. Because the journey of integration, whilst it's happening collectively across the planet, it's happening to the planet, it's happening to society, to the solar system. From the higher point of view, there is only you. Consciousness is a unity, it's only one. We're only one soul. It's your journey, it's your story, which is why the nine say, you are the protagonist, you are the hero, you are the one that saves the world, nobody else, you. So find that perspective and allow yourself to have these feelings and expressions that perhaps you might not think you should be having if you are in alignment with ascension. And try those exercises to be able to integrate the different aspects of you. The writing one is really, really good. If you're not really into writing, then you can use meditation as a gateway to do this. But ultimately, be your own best friend. Don't beat yourself up by thinking that you are failing. It's okay to feel these emotions, because you are, if you will, on a linear level, on a physical level, we are all under attack from one perspective. And from another perspective, we are all moving into a release, and we are all forgiving our attacker, if you will, and we are all assisting one another. And from that point of view, we can never be under attack. There is no attack, and we are not under any kind of attack because we are sovereign. It's taking all those different viewpoints and being okay with all of them, understanding that that depth and that multidimensionality is who you are. So, but you know, that one question, you could actually talk about that one question and respond to it for hours and hours and hours. So really good question. And that's just one aspect of a response to it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Magenta. Many things I've done in my life, I'm sure we've all done at different points here, that are really useful for our own work. Excellent comments. Thank you so much. Jeff, I want you to close out here with just some final comments, please, Sir Jeff, on any of that or anything you feel called to share.
Well, I want to revisit the synchronicity of all of those who joined us today. There's certainly a continuity of alignment and a continuity of a knowingness that everything's going to be okay. And there is within each and every one of us, when we get quiet enough, there is that knowingness. And Magenta speaks of it, Patricia speaks of it, KIARA speaks of it. There's a knowingness within us, and there's an essence of trusting that knowingness. And it also resides in the silence. When we can get quiet enough, there is that quiet voice that says, it's going to be okay. And I want to bring that to the surface, because even though we're going through, as Laura said, the dark night of the soul, we're going through what we talk about, what the ancients have talked about. We're tending to the dweller on the threshold, which is just all of our goop that we have to deal with. There is something very harmonic, and there is something very reassuring with the fact that not only are we there right now, the aspect of just being in it, and the doingness of it, the meditation, the study, the collaborating with like-minded individuals too. So we're matching the beingness, the feminine, and the doingness, the masculine. And as Laura pointed out, with the Lemurians, the Atlanteans, and now this civilization, there's a harmonizing of the masculine and feminine right now that is, when we get quiet enough, there's a real reassurance that everything is unfolding in perfect keeping with the divine design. And I cannot thank all of you enough for waving this flag or carrying this torch or being the light bearers that you are, and the struggles that are that we go through from doing this work. But there is something spectacular unfolding right now, and we are all part of it. And I cannot thank you enough, and also the viewers and all of you, for the grace you bring to the table, and also the message that we're putting forward.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jeff. Well, so much thanks to you, my friend, for all you're doing. And I know I'll see you tonight. But yeah, beautiful thoughts, beautiful words, beautiful intentions, all just amazing. And anyone still here, Magenta, Jeff, Patricia, if you're still there, you're welcome to stay and just finish this meditation. Or if you need to go, we've been going for a while, please just feel free to go. It's really up to you. There's no bad feelings if you need to leave. But KIARA, I want to just throw this over to you again, my friend, in Age of Pandora style, Age of Pandora fashion. If you need to do a meditation, you feel called to do something, please lead us out.
Yeah, so, like Magenta was saying, the whole cosmos is inside us. And if you look at this election, how do we see the Donald Trump inside us? How do we see the Joe Biden inside us? How do we see the deep state inside us? How do we see all of what's happening with all the emotional ups and downs? All, it's not separate. It's not just outside. It's the dance that we're learning to become creative with. So in the Inca tradition from South America, they don't talk about good and bad, positive and negative. What they speak about is energy that's in flow, in motion, or energy that's being blocked. And everything that we're talking about as evil is simply energy that's being blocked. And if it's blocked, it can be made to flow again. That's what Gaia does. And that's what we can do. That's what our bodies are designed for. But in order to do that, we have to break out of the idea of good and bad. And this is what the Inca teachings are about. So you open doorways between the three worlds so that you're not stuck in the limited human personality. You're connected with spirit, you're connected with nature, and you experience yourself as multidimensional. And from that perspective, you're outside the limitations of the rational mind, which needs to judge and divide as good and bad, right and wrong. Automatically, it's not even something you try. You just cannot think in terms of duality anymore. So when people talk about fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional, multidimensional consciousness, basically it's about that. And then once you open the doors, there's a center just below the navel. It's called the Koskonavi. And this center is capable of transmuting Hucha, which is blocked energy, into Sami, which is flow. I haven't seen this in any other teaching around the world. And I love this. So it's the idea that you have it inside you. The body knows what to do. Not the mind, but the body. There's a cellular wisdom that knows exactly how to transmute Hucha into Sami. You step out of duality and then you transmute this stuff. And what they also say is that there's no such thing as personal Hucha. We may have different personal stories, but the Hucha is the same. It's a collective energy field. And so each of us then becomes responsible for not only clearing our personal Hucha, but also get to participate in clearing the collective Hucha, because it's not separate from us. Once we open the doors, expand, we become the earth, we become the human collective. What's inside is outside. And then from that space, you open the Koskonavi. So I'll take you through a quick meditation where we can do this. All of us who are watching this, please participate. And it's a practice we can do every day, especially during these times. So it's about breaking out of duality. It's about releasing the fear, which also means releasing the hatreds and moving forward. All right, so just close your eyes for a moment. And imagine that there's a bubble of light completely surrounding you in all directions. It extends out about 6 feet or 2 meters in every direction. And this bubble represents your personal self, or what the Incas call the middle world, Kaipacha. I'll go through this relatively quickly here. So once you have a sense of this bubble, over the top of this bubble, notice that there's a window to the sky. And it's like a circular window. It's like the diaphragm of a camera that can be closed or opened. And just with your intention now, you don't have to use visualizations or effort or breath. You just intend for this window to open as wide as possible. So you're simply training the cellular mind now. The body knows already. So you just command and it opens. And as soon as it opens, immediately there's this powerful stream of light that pours in from the upper worlds, down through the bubble, down through the physical body, into the earth. And this is an electrical frequency, very, very high, purifying light. So feel this pouring through like a waterfall, through every cell of the body, through all the subtle bodies. And all the way down into the earth. And then what happens? The Incas also say that one of the primary laws of the universe is reciprocity. As energy flows in one direction, there's a response in the other direction. So as the Sami pours down from above, there's a response from the earth, and Sami pours up from below. The only difference is that this Sami coming up from the earth is magnetic. Very healing, very nurturing. It's slow, it's heavy. It's embodied. It's very deeply loving and nurturing. You feel this force coming up from the earth, from Gaia, filling your body, filling your cells, moving through all the subtle bodies, all the way through the bubble, and then up through the window to the sky. So you have the electrical and the magnetic forces, both moving simultaneously, interacting with each other. You feel yourself expanding further and further out, beyond this individualized bubble. You're entering into the causal body, the realm of the collective soul. And once these doorways between the worlds are open, you're no longer locked in duality. As Rumi says, out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. This is that multidimensional field where the three worlds merge together. And now we can work with the Koskonavi, the alchemical work of transmutation. So imagine that where the second chakra is, just below the navel, there's a cone of light with the wide end of the cone pointing forwards. And this is also like a window or like an eye. And so you're now opening this window, you're opening this eye with the intention to receive hucha from the collective human consciousness and to transmute it. So remember, once again, it's not negative energy. If hucha is labeled or identified as something negative, there'll be an immediate reaction from the body. But it's simply compost. You're receiving this energy that's been stuck with all these manifestations of fear, resistance, greed, violence, everything that we've created from our illusion of duality. But it's simply energy that's been stuck. And we receive it, we transmute it through the Koskanavi. And whatever cannot be transmuted directly through the body goes straight down into the earth. And then Mother Earth helps to transmute it. She sends it up as Sami. Either way, the hucha is transmuted into Sami. Sami is a light energy. It moves up through the body. It fills your cells, fills your heart, and then starts to overflow out through your heart into the human collective. And the human collective is much simpler than we realize. We all have the same desires, the same needs. Ordinary people don't wish to impose on each other in violent ways. Ordinary people wish to live in creative peace. In sovereignty, in love. And so as we send the Sami back out into the collective, this is the intention. We are supporting Mother Earth. We are supporting the human collective in releasing all this trauma, all the hucha that's been accumulated as part of our subconscious conditioning. Transmuting it, and stepping forward into the creation of a new age of light, Satyuga. The Incas also talk about Pachacuti, the time of turning upside down. And this is also what we're experiencing now, especially this year. Everything that we've known, believed, understood is being turned upside down. Our values, our allegiances. And we're connecting deeper eventually to something that's beyond ourselves. There's a supramental force descending, not just through the mind, not just through the heart, but through our bodies into the earth. And this is what supports a new evolution for Gaia, for humanity, all species. And this is what we're seeing now with this transmutation. Gaia is supporting this because this is who she is. She is unconditional love. She doesn't see things in terms of good and bad, right and wrong. She doesn't seek vengeance. Despite everything. And if that's not unconditional love, what is? And so as we connect with her, as we release Hucha from a collective human consciousness, we enter into a space where we can embrace each other, no matter what the differences on the surface might be. We can embrace ourselves in a common vision for Gaia's evolution, for a new humanity, Homo Luminous. And we see around us, embracing us, supporting us, all the masters and angels, elemental spirits, beings of light from so many dimensions, upper worlds, lower worlds, middle worlds. What an adventure, what a creation. What a dance of life. And this is how we get beyond duality. This is how we move up the scale of consciousness collectively. Remember, it's not my Hucha or your Hucha. It's just Hucha. And you're transmuting that into flow, into life, energy, Tao, Sami. This is the nature of the universe. This is the spirit of Gaia. So remain in this state as long as you wish. This is a tool you can continue to work with. So you just open the doors, feel the reciprocity. Sami pouring down, Sami pouring up. Electrical, magnetic. And then open the Koskonavi with your intention. And simply allow that transmutation, supported by Mother Earth. And then just hold that space. So it's not about needing to do something with the mind, visualizing whatever it may be. It's trusting that the body knows how to do this. There's an intelligence within ourselves that's connected to the intelligence of Gaia. And this is what we are opening to now. So let your body guide the way. And thank you for being part of this vision, for being part of this community, for being part of this great work. Blessings and love.
Thank you, Kiara, my brother of light. What can you say about Kiara's meditations? Wow. Nothing but pure magic. And I think we need to record these, Kiara, and put them out somewhere. They're very, very good indeed. Of course, Kiara does these sometimes, I think, more than once a week with a European audience largely, but we need to bring that back more online. I'm going to call that one the Unbreakable Chain meditation, the one where we accept and fully integrate the hucha, the blocked energy of the planet, and heal it. We do have that power. And it is a magical time here. It is a great, great time here on Earth as we close out. And these conversations like this that are happening on many, many channels are so important to be had. And as the great master Serapis Bey has talked about, Jeff, I know you know, that these conversations, that when they're spoken with the right intention, they do dissolve darkness on the planet. Just our words and our conversations here is dissolving the things that are going on. It is contributing to the unraveling of the ignorance of God. So just a wonderful conversation. All of you, thank you for being here. From the depths of my soul to yours, thank you. Thank you for presence, attendance, contribution. It's been a long 2.5 hours here. And I'm sure we will come together again next year at some point. We'll be brought together again. And goodness knows where we will be as a collective. What an exciting thought. But again, many, many blessings to all watching. We've had many hundred today watching. Thank you for being on this journey with us again. It is just magic. And if it's any closing thoughts that any of you have at this point, open table, feel free to round off here and comment whatever you wish.
Magenta, thank you so much for your input. Kiara, thank you. Gratitudes don't do it real justice. And David, thank you for organizing and allowing this wonderful platform for us to share. This is a brilliant opportunity and a brilliant capacity to express our appreciation for who we are and what we are and how this is all unfolding. Thank you so much, all of you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Kiara, for that amazing meditation. I feel something really profound took place within me in that meditation, especially with the space below the navel. There's something going on there. So I'm very grateful and thank you so much. It was just deeply, deeply beautiful and integrative, and I need to go away and process it.
Amen.
Thank you, Magenta.
Yeah, thank you, Kiara. Well, yeah, we're well out of time here, guys. Just real quick, stay on the line, we'll wrap up. But to echo, thank you for all joining us today. Thank you for the light that you bring, not just us here in this conversation. You bring it too in the chat. I read them. We read the comments, most of them for the most part. And you are doing a great service to yourself, to us, to the collective. So please keep doing it. Please feel called to join the front line however you can. And if that's just sitting on your couch in the morning and doing one of Kiara's meditations, one of Magenta's meditations, taking one of Jeff's classes in the evening, whatever it is, it's the right thing for you to do. And boy, is it right if it does feel that way. So thank you for being with us today, and all the love and light in the world that can't be expressed in words and won't be. And we'll see you on the next Age of Pandora episode.